The episode Frankendoodle is one of SpongeBob's best episodes, but it's not the only one. Stick around till the end to find out why this show had us all hooked. The episode Frankendoodle starts out with SpongeBob and Patrick playing rock, paper, scissors. Exactly above them was an artist. This artist had dropped his only pencil in the ocean, which landed just in front of SpongeBob and Patrick. They were scared of it at first, but once they found out that it was just a giant pencil, they tried playing with it. The first thing they wanted to do with it was draw giant pictures. SpongeBob was the first to use the pencil, but this pencil wasn't an ordinary pencil. What made it different wasn't its size. It was a magic pencil. Everything drawn by it would come to life. SpongeBob and Patrick eventually learn this, and this news excites them.
Now all I need is a magic mustache, and all my dreams will have come true.
SpongeBob and Patrick had some fun with the pencil, but this fun wouldn't last long. They decided to prank Squidward with it. The first prank was relatively harmless, but then SpongeBob decided to amp it up a notch. He wanted to draw himself and fool Squidward into thinking it was him. It's not a particularly funny prank, but it turned out to be. So SpongeBob drew himself and called it Doodlebob. They couldn't wait to see Squidward's reaction. But Doodlebob wasn't very happy to see Squidward, so he calmly expressed his disappointment. This dumbfounded SpongeBob and Patrick. They weren't expecting this at all, and before they knew it, Doodlebob stole the pencil and ran away. So they set out to stop Doodlebob from terrorizing anyone else. They went out to look for him, but they couldn't find him at first.
Maybe he's in that poorly drawn pineapple.
They were a little scared to go deal with him, but this had to be done. So they slowly approached Doodlebob's pineapple. But Doodlebob wasn't going to go down so easily. Patrick wanted to stay in the hole because it was safer, but Doodlebob proved him wrong.
Where's the leak, ma'am?
Twice.
Finland!
He managed to escape, but this wasn't over for SpongeBob and Patrick. They eventually found Doodlebob again. They decided to catch him by surprise this time.
Oh boy, a surprise party! Is it his birthday?
But Doodlebob was 2 steps ahead. It seemed like Doodlebob really hated Patrick because he let go of SpongeBob to do this.
Here's your present! You're welcome.
Anyways, letting go of SpongeBob proved to be a mistake because SpongeBob eventually got the upper hand. Doodlebob got cornered and eventually destroyed by SpongeBob.
Destroyer of evil!
Take it easy, it's just a drawing.
But SpongeBob didn't finish the job. Doodlebob managed to survive, and he sought revenge. Later that night, just as SpongeBob was going to sleep, Doodlebob broke into his house and drew himself up again. He wasn't there to play games. He chased SpongeBob around his house, destroying any obstacle that came in the way. SpongeBob had nowhere else to run, so he had to fight back. He managed to get the pencil, or part of it at least, but this didn't matter because he lost it.
Now, SpongeBob, you're gonna pay for that!
All hope wasn't lost though, because Doodlebob had one weakness: paper. This gave SpongeBob enough time to strike, and this time, finish the job. The next day, he told Patrick what had happened, and they decided that this pencil was too much power for 2 kids, so they sent it back up to the surface, where it would spend its final moments. The 3rd place spot was probably the hardest one to pick, but this episode definitely deserved it. I found this episode very funny, but it's not really a nostalgic episode to me, since I've only watched this episode for the first time a few months ago. But it's still deserving of the 3rd place spot just for its creativity and humor. The next episode on the list is one you've all probably heard of: Band Geeks. The episode kicks off with Squidward playing his clarinet. He doesn't play for long though because his doorbell suddenly rang. Behind the door was a Dr. Fish.
Yeah, we're with the pet hospital down the street, and I understand you have a dying animal on the premises.
Something else rang, but this time it wasn't the door. It was his phone. He received a phone call from his old band rival, Squilliam. Squilliam called Squidward to tell him that he's now the leader of a big band, and that they were supposed to play in the Bubble Bowl. Squilliam kind of mocked Squidward for working the register, and to further embarrass Squidward, Squilliam told him that he won't be able to make it to the Bubble Bowl, and he'd like for Squidward and his band to play instead, knowing well that Squidward didn't have a band. But Squidward didn't want to seem like a loser in front of Squilliam, so he told him,
I do have a band, and we're gonna play that bubble ball!
Which was all part of Squilliam's plan. As I said, Squidward doesn't have a band, and if he doesn't want to look like a fool in front of Squilliam, he has to act fast. So, in order to assemble a band as quickly as possible, Squidward hung flyers around Bikini Bottom. And the following night, there was a group of people waiting for him. Squidward asked the crowd if any of them had ever played an instrument before, but he was left a bit disappointed with their answers.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
No, Patrick, mayonnaise is not an instrument.
But this wasn't a problem for Squidward, because he thought he had enough talent for all of them. Unfortunately, that wasn't true.
Too bad that didn't kill me.
Squidward didn't give up, though. Instead, he proposed another exercise, which somehow led to kicking, which led to this, which finally led to this.
Whoever's the owner of the white sedan, you left your lights on.
In the following days, the band sort of improved, but as you might expect, this improvement wouldn't last long. Eventually came the final night before the Bubble Bowl. Squidward wasn't very confident in the band because they hadn't improved much since the first day. He thinks that if they play really loud, people will think that they're good. This doesn't go according to plan, though. Not only did it sound bad, but it also started a fight between the band members. Once the session ended, the band stopped fighting and got ready to leave. But Squidward's last chance to improve the band was now officially gone. He said that they really let him down, and there was no point in showing up tomorrow. Maybe all that Squilliam had said about him was true. SpongeBob felt guilty for all that had happened and wanted to convince everyone to do what's right. So he gave a speech saying that Squidward was almost always there when they needed him, if they imagined hard enough, and it's time for them to return the favor. The next day, Squidward headed to the Bubble Bowl. He went to inform them that his band wouldn't be able to play. Squilliam was there, and he thought everything had gone according to his plan, which it sort of did as far as Squidward knew, but to Squidward's surprise, his band was there waiting for him. Expecting disaster, Squidward went into the bowl with Squilliam and his band, but when they eventually got to the football pitch, the band didn't suck. Quite the opposite, actually. The song they performed might actually be the best music performance in the entirety of SpongeBob. The episode ends with Squidward's very anticipated happy ending. But I can't say the same for Squilliam. This episode is at the top of most people's list. What makes this episode so good, besides the phenomenal song at the end, is that all of the main characters were present. It had a satisfying ending, which we don't get much when episodes are centered around Squidward. We also got some of the most iconic SpongeBob moments from this episode. Band Geeks deserves the second place spot, and it would be first if the next episode didn't exist. And now for the best SpongeBob episode. This episode begins with Squidward once again. He had just arrived at the Krusty Krab. There was nothing unusual about this day in particular. Squidward was his typical pessimistic self, but SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs seemed a little jollier than usual. Today was a special day for the Krusty crew, but Squidward didn't know this. He didn't really care either. When Squidward got to the register, Mr. Krabs popped up and asked Squidward if he was excited. Squidward responded sarcastically, saying,
To go home.
That day happened to be Employee Brotherhood Day, which is totally a real holiday. Mr. Krabs had stopped by to remind Squidward that he had to give SpongeBob the gift he made him, or was supposed to make him. Squidward wasn't really feeling it though, and says that nothing could make him give a gift to SpongeBob. When it came time to exchange gifts, SpongeBob gave Squidward a sweater, which was made with his eyelashes. Squidward didn't like it and threw the shirt back to him. But this really upset SpongeBob. So Squidward, feeling a little guilty, goes back inside to find SpongeBob a gift. He's a little angry that he has to make SpongeBob a gift, but just as he's complaining, he spots a group of pirates transporting pies. This is where the episode takes a turn. Squidward saw these pies and immediately rushed out to get one. He thought that if he bought SpongeBob a homemade pie, he could pretend he made it. But one of the pirates tells Squidward that they're not homemade.
They were made in a factory. A bomb factory. They're bombs.
Squidward is a little let down by this, but when the pirates found out that he was willing to pay, they immediately took back what they had said and sold one to Squidward. For some reason, Squidward believed them, even though they couldn't agree on a flavor for the pie. Anyways, he gives the pie to Mr. Krabs, but not long after, they discover that the pie is in fact a bomb. Squidward starts panicking a bit and tries to explain what happened to Mr. Krabs. Meanwhile, SpongeBob went to Mr. Krabs' office to see what that loud noise was. But he got distracted. He saw the pie Squidward got him, which was left on Mr. Krabs' desk. The pie had a note on it. It read, "To SpongeBob." After Squidward finished explaining the entire story to Mr. Krabs, they realized that they had left a bomb in the Krusty Krab, so they ran back to secure it. But when they got back, it was gone. SpongeBob must have heard them come in, so he came to thank Squidward for the pie, whilst licking his fingers. Then he returned to work. Squidward realized what he had done. He didn't want to kill SpongeBob. Mr. Krabs told him that he'd seen this before, 11 times to be exact. There was no use in calling the hospital because what was about to happen was inevitable. Squidward didn't want to believe Mr. Krabs, but Mr. Krabs was right.
Hello, doctor. Hospital. Won't do any good. 11 times. No.
Mr. Krabs then tells him that SpongeBob only has until sunset. Telling SpongeBob about this wouldn't be a good idea, since this news would ruin the few hours he has left. Feeling guilty, Squidward went up to SpongeBob and told him that there's a part 2 to his gift. He asked him what was the funnest thing he could think of. SpongeBob was more prepared than you might think for this question. He pulled out a huge list with all the things he'd want to do. Squidward was a bit surprised by the length of the list, but he didn't care. He was going to make SpongeBob happy no matter what. So he got out of the Krusty Krab with SpongeBob in order to finish everything before sunset. The first thing SpongeBob wanted to do was show everyone in town his best friend Squidward, which they do. Next, SpongeBob wanted to show everyone his best friend Squidward, but this time while wearing a salmon costume.
You're gonna be wearing a salmon suit?
Ah, that's a good one, Squidward!
They then go through every single bizarre thing on SpongeBob's list, until they eventually reach the final one, which was to watch the sunset together. Although he was exhausted, Squidward is quickly reminded why he's doing all this. So without hesitating, Squidward decided to take SpongeBob to go look at the sunset. They both lie down on the ground. SpongeBob talks about how beautiful the sunset is. It reminds him of bowls of fruit. Squidward, on the other hand, is reminded of explosions.
Erosion.
SpongeBob then says,
You know, if I were to die right now in some sort of fiery explosion due to the carelessness of a friend, well, that'd just be okay.
which further increased Squidward's guilt. The pie started having effects on SpongeBob. Eventually, they both count down the sunset, and we get this beautiful view of it. Eventually, the sun did set, and Squidward spent a day with SpongeBob, doing all the things he wanted him to do, probably to remove any guilt he had. But still, once the explosion hit, Squidward's guilt didn't leave. But it turns out SpongeBob didn't die. In fact, SpongeBob didn't eat the pie at all. Squidward's vulnerable moment ended right then and there, and he went back to his old self. The episode then ended with a bang. This episode is completely different from the previous two. The color choice for this episode is very good, specifically in this scene. It feels a lot calmer and more relaxing compared to the newer, brighter color schemes. Although this contributes to making the episode good, it wasn't this, the jokes or the nostalgia, that made this episode the best. The plot was one of the things which put it on the list, but what put it in the first place spot was how the relationship between the characters were handled, specifically Squidward and SpongeBob. These guys are polar opposites. Squidward is the grumpy adult who only cares about himself, and SpongeBob is the young and positive guy who puts everyone above himself. But when you look at them from a certain point of view, they're not very different. SpongeBob basically lives the same life as Squidward. They both work at the same place, and they both live in the same area. But while SpongeBob faces this life with a smile, Squidward always desires more. He hides what he's truly feeling because he doesn't want the people he looks down upon to know that he's just like them. Unlike SpongeBob, he doesn't appreciate what he has until he's lost it. But in this episode, we see what Squidward is actually like. We see how he cares about other people, even ones he seems to dislike, and that he's more than what we think he is. He only wants to be happy, and he is. He just doesn't know it. That's it for now. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and drop a comment on which episodes you think should have been on the list. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.